This chilling incident unfolded in 1993. While time may have blurred the memory for some, the repercussions of this horrific crime still resonate today. Its brutality shook law enforcement to its core and prompted legal changes across the United States of America. Jennifer Erdman, born August 15, 1978, and Elizabeth Pena, born June 21, 1977, were two close friends residing in Houston, Texas. These middle school girls on the cusp of high school shared a deep bond forged over years of friendship. Elizabeth's father later described Jennifer as a remarkable young woman, a positive influence, intelligent and caring, a true friend to his daughter. Both girls came from families with high expectations. Fashionably dressed, with a fondness for jewelry and makeup, they also enjoyed an active lifestyle, playing basketball together. Those who knew them well considered their friendship exemplary. Jennifer and Elizabeth embraced the fullness of teenage life, surrounded by friends, dreams, and aspirations. They were inseparable, spending their leisure time together, socializing in the same circles, and attending the same parties. On June 24, 1993, they planned to attend a pool party at the home of their friend, Gina. The plan was to meet at Elizabeth's house, who, at 16, was the older of the two. 14-year-old Jennifer's father, Randy, dropped her off at Elizabeth's around 4:45 p.m. There, they prepared for the party, getting ready together before heading to Gina's. Elizabeth's mother drove them to the party, arriving around 8 p.m. with a strict curfew of 11:30 p.m. Both girls were responsible and typically adhered to curfews. They assured their parents they would be home on time. However, that evening, Jennifer and Elizabeth lost track of time. Shortly after 11 p.m., realizing they were late, they hurried to leave Gina's. Two routes presented themselves: a longer, safer route along a well-lit street, or a shortcut through a local park and along the railroad tracks, saving 10 to 15 minutes. Anxious to avoid worrying their parents, they chose the quicker route. Cell phones were a nascent technology in 1993, not readily available. Unable to contact their families, the girls, like many at the time, underestimated the potential dangers. In an era of greater trust, unlocked doors were the norm. Without a second thought, they opted for the shortcut. Their path led them through the dimly lit park and across the railroad embankment towards Elizabeth's home, a decision that would prove tragically fatal. Around 4 a.m., Jennifer's mother awoke to find her daughter's bedroom light on, an unusual occurrence. Discovering Jennifer's room empty, she became increasingly concerned. Hesitant to cause undue alarm, she tried contacting Elizabeth's parents, thinking Jennifer might have stayed over. Unable to reach them, she then tried Gina, to no avail. Jennifer's parents, now deeply worried, began their search. Their first stop was Elizabeth's home, but no one answered. Randy then went to Gina's, only to discover the girls weren't there. Gina confirmed they had left around 11 p.m., returning to Elizabeth's house. Randy learned that her parents were equally distraught, having not seen their daughter since the previous evening. Both families were now desperately searching for their missing daughters. Panic set in, and they contacted 911. Given the circumstances, police launched an immediate investigation. Two young girls missing overnight raised serious concerns. The possibility of them running away was dismissed. All their belongings and money were at home, and they had no apparent reason for such a drastic action. Both came from stable, loving families. Alongside the police search, the parents distributed flyers with their daughters' pictures, canvassing the neighborhood, questioning anyone who might have seen them. Their efforts yielded nothing. For agonizing days passed with no leads. Despite the family's hopes, the crucial 48-hour window had closed, and the worst was feared. Then, on the fourth day, a chilling anonymous call came into the police department. The caller claimed Jennifer and Elizabeth's bodies were in a wooded area behind the park where they had taken a shortcut. Officers immediately converged on the area, commencing a thorough search. Crossing the railroad embankment, they spotted something disturbing in a small clearing. As they drew closer, They were horrified to discover two badly decomposed bodies lying on their backs, a short distance apart, naked and exposed to the elements. Identification proved challenging due to the advanced state of decomposition. The scene indicated a prolonged and violent struggle. The ground was disturbed, marked by numerous footprints, drag marks, and signs of a fight. The full extent of the girls' suffering remained unknown, but the scene painted a gruesome picture. Police notified the media of the grim discovery. During this time, Jennifer's father, while giving an interview pleading for information, learned the devastating news. He rushed to the scene, grief-stricken, attempting to breach the police cordon, convinced his daughter was among the victims. Law enforcement struggled to restrain the distraught man at the wooded crime scene. He desperately questioned the officers about the hair color of the recovered bodies, but they were reluctant to provide details. The remains were severely decomposed and damaged, making immediate identification impossible, though suspicion fell upon two missing girls. All available evidence was transferred to the forensic laboratory, where experts ultimately identified the deceased as 14-year-old Jennifer Erdman and 16-year-old Elizabeth Pena. Dental records proved crucial, as 4 days of exposure to heat and insects had taken their toll. From the outset, the investigation pointed towards murder. Numerous, overlapping footprints at the scene suggested the involvement of multiple individuals, though the precise number remained unclear pending further analysis. Autopsies revealed strangulation as the cause of death for both teenagers. The absence of widespread DNA technology and databases at the time significantly hampered investigative efforts. The sole lead was an anonymous tip that pinpointed the location of the bodies, suggesting the caller possessed further, potentially vital information. Tracing the call led officers to the residence of brothers Joe and Peter Cantu. Only Joe was present, and he immediately confessed to being the anonymous informant. He implicated his brother Peter and 5 associates in the brutal murders. A search of the premises yielded several pieces of female jewelry, later identified by the victims' families as having been worn by Elizabeth and Jennifer the night they disappeared. DNA analysis confirmed the presence of the girls' genetic material on the jewelry. Joe Cantu's account allowed detectives to reconstruct the horrific events. Shortly after 11 p.m., the two girls were walking through the park. They encountered Romano and Frank Sandoval, who had recently departed a gang initiation involving 6 males aged 14 to 18. The eldest were 18-year-olds Jose Medellin, Derek Byrne, and Peter Cantu. Raul Villarreal, 17, had just completed his initiation right that night. Also present were 17-year-old Efren Perez and 14-year-old Venancio Medellin. Unknowingly, the girls were approaching the clearing where the initiation had taken place. A simple warning from the Sandoval brothers could have averted the tragedy, but they remained silent. As they neared home, Elizabeth walked slightly ahead of Jennifer. Jose Medellin emerged from the darkness and attempted to seize Elizabeth. She evaded him and quickened her pace, but he pursued and captured her, dragging her towards the clearing. Hearing her friend's screams, Jennifer, perhaps hoping Jose was alone and unaware of the larger group, made the fateful decision to intervene rather than seeking help. She was quickly overpowered and thrown to the ground beside Elizabeth. For the next hour, the two girls were subjected to a brutal and sustained assault, including repeated rape and beatings. Forensic evidence indicated they fought back fiercely, inflicting scratches, bites, and kicks, leaving marks on their attackers. The perpetrators later admitted hearing the girls' cries for help and witnessing their attempts to comfort each other. After the attack, gang leader Peter Cantu, fearing identification and arrest, ordered their execution. Raul Villarreal forced Jennifer to her knees. He and Derek Byrne then strangled her with a red belt, pulling with such force that it snapped. They then finished the strangulation with shoelaces. Elizabeth was forced to witness Jennifer's murder. Pleading for her life, she promised silence, but her pleas were ignored. In a desperate attempt to escape, she broke free, but was quickly recaptured, brutally beaten, and strangled by Peter, Jose, and Derek. To ensure their deaths, The gang members reportedly stomped on the girls' throats. They then stole their jewelry and money. All but Derek proceeded to Peter Cantu's house, where his brother Joe and Joe's wife Christina were present. Christina observed blood on the group's clothing and their agitated demeanor. Instead of remaining silent, they boasted of their crimes, recounting the gruesome details to Joe and Christina with chilling laughter. "I recount the harrowing details of a brutal crime that shocked a nation." Jose Medellin's casual admission that a gun would have made his task easier disturbed Peter's brother and his wife, Joe and Christina. Instead of confronting the gang members directly, they chose a more cautious approach, listening intently to Christina's retelling of the events. The sheer horror convinced them of the truth. Later, alone, Christina voiced her anguish and fear to Joe, her past experience with sexual assault amplifying her terror. She argued vehemently that the criminals needed to be imprisoned to prevent further atrocities. Joe, torn between family loyalty and fear of reprisal, initially hesitated. Christina's persistence, coupled with the assurance of anonymity, eventually swayed him. The day following the murders, Joe contacted the police. His warning, tragically, was initially dismissed as a prank due to the girls' disappearances not yet being reported. As the search began, Joe's call was forgotten amidst the chaos. He and Christina anxiously followed the news, growing increasingly disheartened by the lack of progress. 2 days later, driven by a sense of urgency, Joe contacted the police again, providing more specific details. Each call was a tremendous risk, yet he persevered. On the 4th day, his information led to the grim discovery of the girls' bodies. To corroborate his account, Peter presented the stolen jewelry, including a ring with the initial E that belonged to Elizabeth, a chilling reminder of Jose's casual disregard for the gravity of his actions. Police discovered a piece of a torn red belt in the brothers' home, matching the murder weapon found at the scene. On June 29, 1993, all 6 perpetrators were arrested. Derek's attempted escape during his arrest and his question about the 2 girls confirmed the validity of the tip-off. He confessed to providing Jose with the murder weapon. A fragment of the belt found in his home contained the victim's DNA. Even Raul, a recent recruit to the gang, was apprehended. The overwhelming evidence resulted in charges of double murder, rape, and torture. Each perpetrator was tried individually, forcing the families to relive the horrific details 6 times. They remained resolute in their pursuit of justice, seeking the death penalty. Jennifer's father later recalled a chilling encounter with Derek at the crime scene, a disturbing smirk and wave that he later recognized as a cruel mockery of his grief. 5 of the 6 received death sentences. Venancio Medellin, just 14 at the time, cooperated with the investigation and received a 40-year sentence. Following the trial, another potential crime surfaced. Joe revealed that Peter Cantu, Jose Medellin, and Derek O'Brien were likely involved in the unsolved murder of Patricia Lopez, whose body had been found 6 months earlier. The similarities in the crimes were striking. DNA evidence linked Jose to the crime, and a fingerprint on a beer can match Derek's. Though he confessed to being present, claiming intoxication, insufficient evidence prevented further charges. Raul Villarreal's defense argued for leniency, citing his inexperience and recent induction into the gang. However, the prosecution emphasized his presence and participation, regardless of intent, resulting in a death sentence. This unprecedented case, with 5 death sentences, gripped the nation. The families of Elizabeth and Jennifer attended every trial and execution, their unwavering presence a testament to their enduring strength in pursuit of justice. The first to face the consequences of his actions was Darashon O'Brien. His conviction culminated in execution in July 2006. Overcome with remorse, he offered apologies to the grieving families mere moments before receiving the lethal injection. He confessed that his actions constituted the gravest error of his life. Despite Derek's repentance, Jennifer's father, Randy, remained resolute. While some, even those in positions of authority, argued against capital punishment, branding lethal injection as unnecessarily cruel, the victims' families found such arguments hollow. Derek O'Brien's death was swift, lasting only 20 seconds. Jennifer's father, a witness to the execution, pointedly remarked that his daughter's suffering had stretched for over an hour, filled with unimaginable pain and torment. He wished her passing could have been as painless as an injection. Before the execution, Randy vehemently declared that he wished upon Derek the same brutal fate his daughter endured. Jose's execution also ignited controversy, this time on a global scale. It came to light that Jose was a Mexican national who had not been granted access to consular officials from his home country before his trial. This right is guaranteed by the Vienna Convention and consular agreements. Although a signatory to the convention, the United States withdrew from mandatory jurisdiction in 1986. Despite this, Mexico pursued legal action against the United States in the International Court of Justice. The court ultimately mandated a hearing for Jose Medellin to ascertain whether the lack of contact with Mexican consular representatives had negatively impacted his defense. Unsurprisingly, the case attracted significant media attention and the involvement of numerous human rights organizations, amplifying the gravity of the situation. In 2005, then-President George W. Bush Jr. authorized these hearings, but the Texas governor resisted. He contested the order in the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that only Congress possessed the authority to mandate such proceedings. In July 2005, the International Court of Justice ordered a stay of execution for Jose pending a consular hearing, but the Texas governor declared that he wasn't obligated to comply with the International Court of Justice's rulings. Death penalty opponents vocally protested the impending execution. Conversely, the victims' families staunchly advocated for lethal injection, deeming it the only fitting punishment for such a heinous crime. One can only speculate about the thoughts of the condemned man as this legal battle unfolded. He likely clung to the hope of a reprieve. Before his execution on August 5, 2008, the Supreme Court denied his final appeal. In the final moments, the Texas governor rejected pleas for postponement from both Mexico and Washington. He justified the execution by citing the horrific crime. 15 years prior, in Houston, the man had brutally tortured, raped, and strangled 2 young girls. Jose Medellin's execution was ultimately carried out. He met his end 2 years after Derek. On August 17, 2010, gang leader Peter Cantu was also executed by lethal injection. He declined to make a final statement. The victims' parents later expressed satisfaction with the court's decision and the executions. They also expressed their hope that the remaining perpetrators who escaped the death penalty would remain incarcerated for life. While the legal proceedings were ongoing, the Supreme Court enacted legislation prohibiting the execution of minors. Consequently, Efrain Perez and Raul Villarreal received life sentences, with the possibility of parole in 2029. The events profoundly impacted Houston. The horrific tragedy shattered countless lives. The city, and indeed the entire nation, was forced to confront the persistent and pervasive problem of gang violence. A memorial now stands at the site of the horrific initiation, commemorating the tragic loss of the 2 schoolgirls. Another memorial exists on the grounds of their school. Jennifer's family demonstrated unwavering resolve in their pursuit of justice for the girls. To date, the 14-year-old offender has filed for parole more than 5 times. Each attempt has been met with fierce opposition from Jennifer's family, spearheaded by her father, Randy. He maintained that the young perpetrators, despite their age, should never be released. Randy granted numerous interviews to reporters. He and his family pledged to fight relentlessly to ensure that everyone involved in the brutal crime faced the consequences. He remained steadfast in his commitment throughout his life. Tragically, he succumbed to lung cancer in 2014 at the age of 61. His advocacy for the victims left a lasting legacy. His activism spurred legislative changes, granting victims' families greater legal rights in such cases. During court proceedings, Randy openly expressed his animosity towards the perpetrators, eliciting both sympathy and criticism. Previously, victims' families were not afforded the opportunity to express their emotions in court. However, after this case, the system became more receptive. Furthermore, attending executions had been prohibited. Yet, Randy's persistence led to the overturning of this restriction. Because of his efforts, the victims' families were present at all the executions, a change he believed contributed to a small measure of justice. The remaining gang members who are incarcerated continue to petition for parole, clinging to the hope of eventual release. Their most recent request was denied in 2020.